Hi everyone, welcome to session 2B. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. It's been a long morning and it'll get much easier after this morning. We have three interesting presentations right now. First we have Ray Tan, followed by Christian Lemuel MAGALING and Amna Ali EISSA. So these three presentations have community archiving in common, and I think it's going to be an interesting afternoon. So we'll have questions after the three presentations. So you only see Ray here, the other two will be on a video presentation, and the speakers will be available online after that too. So introducing Ray Tan, she's an audiovisual archivist from the National Archives of Singapore, and she is part of the Soundscape Singapore team that also includes Jamie, Lee, and Sasha. Ray.
Thank you for the introduction. Can you hear me from here? Thanks for coming here after your lunch. You don't have to sit down throughout the presentation. You can stand up, move around if you wish to. Personally, why do I have echo? Personally, I absorb information better when I'm jumping around. So I understand that. If you feel sleepy, you can really just stand up. So my presentation for today is called Painting with Sound, the Aural Tapestry of a City-State. So why Aural Tapestry? So soundscape is made up of all the little bits of sounds. So imagine a tapestry, a quilt work. So each square would be each sound, each collection of sound. And together it would form a very nice painting, a very nice picture of how Singapore sounds like. And why city-state? Because the unique character of Singapore is that we have everything crammed onto a single island. Of course, not including the little islands around Singapore, but we are mostly crammed onto one main island. So it also means that every 500 meters that we step, every 1 kilometer that we move into, our sound environment changes, and it can change very drastically. So that's what we have. And as a treat for coming over here, I would have a little magic for you. If you close your eyes right now, I can take you to Singapore. So close your eyes and imagine. So right now, I'm bringing you to a neighborhood in Bukit Gombak. This is a morning in Bukit Gombak, which is a small town on the western side of Singapore Island. There are kids playing in the playground. And next, in the same neighborhood, we hear people practicing the piano. Sounds good. It's lucky that he's a good player. And next, we have a recording from a person who speaks Kristang, which is an endangered language in Singapore. It's a mixture of Portuguese and Malay.
Bom Pamiang, eu sou nome Desmond, eu cristão, eu puripapia cristão pouco. Agora, tanto gente puripapia cristão, tudo já quise. Natal também, eu queria falar com tudo gente, com soldado de Singapura. Bom Natal, bom Ano Novo. Agora, eu queria cantar. Gentlinona, eu queria casar. Gentlinona, eu queria casar. Casa de porta, cai querer casar. Casa de porta, cai querer casar. Gusta?
So there we go. Welcome back to Pattaya. So a quick introduction. This is the National Archives of Singapore. I'm from NAS, from the Audiovisual Archives Department. And what we have is a crowdsourcing website. Does anyone here, do your archives have a crowdsourcing platform as well? Is anyone? Oh, this one's better. Hello? Oh, it's better. Welcome back to Pattaya. Does anyone else, is anyone else managing a crowdsourcing site, a crowdsourcing platform in your archives? So if you haven't set one up yet, you can consider doing so. It is very interesting. So for Singapore, for NAS, our website is called the Citizen Archivist Project, which would be relaunched as Documenting Singapore Together later this year. So with a crowdsourcing website, what we want to empower people is the idea that we are all archivists. We want everyone in the community, every members of public to understand that each of us have a part to play in preserving our shared history and heritage. So we want to empower each individual to play a part in preservation. This is how our Citizen Archivist project website looks like. So it was launched in 2015 so that it would be able to make records more accessible and searchable. We want to tap on the collective knowledge of the wider community and at the same time promote engagement with historical records. So what do we do with this website? If you go over to Citizen Archivist project, you'll be able to see that the laymen, the members of public are able to log in, they can transcribe recordings, they can translate recordings, they can look at paper documents, at calligraphy work, and they can write down in text. So they help to translate from images to text. And they are also able to create metadata and describe pictures, describe photographs. So we are outsourcing some of the knowledge work over to the members of public, but they are the ones who have the knowledge of the place. They have the knowledge of the history, they have knowledge of the photographs, the source and origin. So this is why a crowdsourcing website is useful. And part of the crowdsourcing website is, of course, the subject matter for today, SoundscapeSG. So when we talk about soundscape, we have to mention the father of soundscape, Mr. R. Murray Schafer. He's the person who coined the term soundscape in the first place. So the soundscape is the acoustic environment as understood and perceived by humans. It's made up of geophysical sounds and sounds from non-human and human organisms. This is how soundscape looks like. Soundscape, it is a crowdsourcing platform that encourages the community to upload sounds. One aspect about Soundscape is that all the sounds are linked to a sound map. So as each individual uploads a sound recording, they will have to tag where the recording was recorded at. They have to tag it to a location on a map. So it was launched in 2020, and now we have more than 2,300 recordings from about 600 unique uploaders. So this is how the website looks like. So you can see from here, there's a map. We can choose to look at listen to the recordings from just selecting the pins, the location pins, or we can also explore the collection by looking at the categories that we have. And we can also choose to search for the sound clips on the search bar. This is how we can explore the website. And if you want to contribute, there's a button over there. So SoundscapeSG is a collection of sounds that is brought together by individuals. It is a reflection of the sounds that hold a particular meaning to each person. And when put together, it collectively forms a sonic identity of Singapore. That brings us back to the title, the Aural Tapestry of a City-State. Fundamental objectives of SoundscapeSG. We want to create a sound map of Singapore through crowdsourcing. We want to preserve the unique and authentic sounds of Singapore. We want to capture the rapidly changing sounds of our country and to advocate for the role of sound in identifying and shaping our heritage and identity. So these are one of the prompts, a few of the prompts that we give to members of public when they want to upload a sound. So we always ask them, what is your story? What sounds do you think would disappear over time? What sounds should we preserve for the next generation of Singaporeans? Would you be able to curate a collection that expresses who you are? So what are the sounds that each individual can upload? We encourage them to look at who they are. Maybe they can look back at dialect groups in Singapore. They can perhaps interview their grandparents and record the interviews. They can perhaps say something in dialects. Or it could also be an interest or a passion that they have. I have friends who are able to make up the sound, identify the model of a plane just by listening to the engine of a plane flying overhead. They would listen to the engine sound and go like, oh, it is a Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engine, so it must be a 787 Dreamliner that is flying overhead right now. They are able to do that. So they can have a collection of sounds of plane engines and they can give the metadata. This is the sound of a Trent 1000 engine. This is sound of a Pratt & Whitney engine, and so on and so forth. Or it could be that the sound that you can record, it has something to do with your profession, your day job. So if you have a job that most people don't have access to, perhaps you are a pilot, you can record the pre-flight chats and you can upload it because most people don't have access to being in a cockpit. So these are the unique sounds that each individual can upload. So we have some references of soundscapes or sound maps around the world. A quick one, we have Apori, we have Sound Around You, London Sound Survey, Montreal Sound Map, Sound Seeker, and Sounds of New York City. Sounds of New York City is an interesting one that I want to highlight. The purpose of this site is to monitor noise pollution. So they ask for contributions of sounds to record data of noise pollution. This website has since closed because the project has been completed, but when you go to the site, you are able to see the statistics, the results of the survey. You can see them below. How many volunteers, classifications, subjects, and you can see the results. So this one's interesting. And of course, not to forget, the Netherlands Institute of Sound and Vision. And one of the projects that I saw that's really interesting is their Polyphonia project that they are engaged with at the moment. So it is also worth checking out. So the Soundscape website, it sounds quite simple, right? So we have a sound map, people just upload sound recordings onto it, they just tag a location. It should be quite simple, right? No, there's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of problems everywhere. And I will highlight three main challenges that we have experienced in managing this website. First challenge, it is that users often upload the sounds to the wrong categories. Yes, so to give an example, these are the categories of SoundscapeSG. We would have users upload the sounds of a nature park, a walk in the park, and they'll upload it onto sounds on the go, a sound of transportation. And so there'll be like mixes in categories. So two possible reasons would be the user interface of the website. Is it that the categories are not clear, or the definitions of each category is not clear enough, and perhaps leading to the misinterpretation of the categories? And of course, categories are not perfect. There are a lot of gray areas as well. So if I were a bus driver and I were to record a sound of me driving a bus, would that come under sounds of the workplace or would that come under sounds of transport? So there are lots of gray areas. So what do we do? So we considered a couple of solutions. The most obvious one would be a knee-jerk reaction to this, which is to add more categories. How many of you think doing that would be a good idea? No, right? At the end of 2 years, we will see 100 categories and each category would have 2 sounds. The long-term solution is to change the website to rework how the data or how the recordings are the metadata is tagged, how they can be searched. So we use tags instead of categories. So we would use instead of categories, when people upload the sounds, they would tag it, they'll tag it to bus, they'll tag it to transportation, and all these tags, to prevent any errors, these tags would be predetermined by us. So if someone wants to upload the recording of a bird call and they type in BIRB, burp, it would come up as bird. So it is automatic. Yes. So, but this would require some work in overhauling the website. So this would take some time. Second challenge, this is the most challenging one. It is in education and raising awareness for the cause. So raising awareness, as we learned, it does not lead to action taken. So, for example, I asked the room in here, should we every day exercise for 1 hour and eat healthy and sleep by 10 p.m.? Is it something that we should be doing? You nod your head and say yes, right? Because we are all aware that this is a healthy thing to do. But how many of us actually put that into action? How many of us actually translate that into action? So awareness doesn't equate action. So firstly, raising awareness is already a challenge. And the next one, cultivating the habit. How do we cultivate the awareness for people to listen when they go out? When you go out, people are always like plug into their headphones, they are listening to music. They are not aware of the sounds environment around them. So even after we jump through this hoop, there's also telling people how to have better quality audio recordings even when you're using your mobile phone to record your devices. We don't expect everyone to carry a test cam as they go around recording sounds, but how do we have a proper sound recording on our mobile phones? And even after we jump through this hoop yet again, the importance of metadata. What is the information that we want them to put up online when they are recording the sounds? So many hoops, so much headaches. This is an example, some snapshots of the metadata that is put up on our site. So we can see someone uploaded on the bus. And on the metadata, the description, he just said bus. So I have questions looking at this. Is the bus very special? Is it a magic school bus? Why is this sound meaningful? Why did he choose to make the effort of recording this sound and uploading it onto the platform to just say, it's a bus? And we also have one, water is boiling. That's a title. The description is, water is boiling. Very informative. And we also have old ladies practicing dance. That is spelling error. Spelling errors are also a problem when it comes to metadata. And we have some pretty interesting examples as well, which is actually my favorite. Audio from worker who stole a keyboard. So we have this, okay, the metadata goes like this. Audio from worker who stole his brother's keyboard. Lesser facts about this keyboard is known. Specs Gamma K87, Datron Blues, clicky tactile, unsure if it's optical or mechanical switches, low profile board with clear polycarbonate case. Case unknown. Keycaps are ABS material because cherry profile interferes with north-facing LEDs and seems too short to be SA profile, so on and so forth. But I love it. I love it. He made the effort to write all this. There's two sets of information that I can get from here. First is what is the mechanical keyboard that he's recording. Second is the story of how he got this recording. He got it that he don't own this keyboard. He took it out of he stole it from his brother's room while his brother was at school. That is the story of how he recorded this. But this is interesting. This is interesting. So, okay, ideally, metadata standardization, so it would come like this, would have delimiters to separate the text that we want so that it is easy for us to convert it into Excel, to paste the data into Excel later on. So this is the ideal recordings, the ideal metadata that we want. So possible solutions is, apart from educating the public about providing good metadata, we could also try to have more fields on the page when people are uploading the sounds. So now when you upload the sound, the page looks like this. So one possible solution is that we could have more fields for people to enter the metadata that we want to. But that is also another thing that we have to think about, is that we have to consider if it takes so long and if it takes so much effort for people to upload a single sound, we might see 0 uploads. So we have to strike our own balance, we have to find a balance. And our next challenge is the quality of the recordings that's uploaded. We look at quality on 3 fronts. The first is the quality of the content. Is the sound a rare sound? Is the type of sound something that we do that fulfills our collection gaps? And we also look at the quality of the recording itself. Is it clear? Is the audio, is the sound clearly discernible? Can we hear well enough? Or does the subject sound like he's very far away? Or is there a lot of echo like just now? And lastly, the quality of the metadata. Why is this sound uploaded? Why is this sound important? Why is this sound meaningful? So the quality of recordings that's uploaded is inconsistent, and a higher proportion of sounds stem from common spaces and they don't contribute to collection gaps. So we'll see like a lot of bus sounds, a lot of MRT sounds. So one possible solution that we looked at is to have collaborations. So we made a few collaborations. One of it is with Dr. Marcus Tan with the Ambisonic 360. So what he did was his project, him and his team, they would go down to locations in Singapore. They would use a 360 audio microphone as well as camera equipment, and they'll record the entire space. So if you go up to a website, there'll be a link that brings you to a YouTube page where you can scroll, and as you scroll and explore the area, the sound changes as well. So we do this to broaden the perceptions of soundscapes, to tell people, users of the site, that these are the sounds that can be uploaded. And it will give them an idea of the metadata that we want, and for more engagement as well. So we try to find a diverse range of environment and subject matters for us to record for our collaborations, like for example, the sounds of birds in Jurong Bird Park, sounds and the Nature Society of Singapore, as well as frogs and toad sounds. And we recorded the train depots with LTA, our Land Transport Authority. We recorded the rolling stock, and we recorded room tones and ambient tones of performance venues in Esplanade as well. So where we are at, in phase 1, the goal was to raise awareness for this website, for this project, and to get as many recordings in as possible. Phase 2, we started to collaborate with partners to get more variety of sounds, better metadata, to increase the diversity of the collection in the website. And phase 3, where we are at right now, we are continuing to refine the collection. We will also try to build up a community of soundscapists, volunteers who are able to help us manage the website, and who will also be our advocates in educating members of public and helping out in outreach sessions. And we also look to increase the utility of the existing collection by working with artists to make new sounds from the sounds that we already have, to put these sounds in educational materials or to put them in exhibitions. So in the course of this project, we of course ask ourselves a lot of questions. One of which is, how actively do we want to control and curate the collection of the website? Okay, finishing, last slide. So it's all very philosophical. We don't have the answers to all these. We are still trying to find a balance. If the quality of the recordings is not good, do we want to close 1 year? If the quality of the metadata is not good, do we want to close one eye? Or do we close both eyes and close both ears and let the collection grow as freely as it wants to? So how interventionist, should we change the recording if the metadata is bad? Do we want to go in and edit the recording and add our own metadata into the collections that we already have? So how much do we want to intervene in the existing collection? Is there an ideal ratio of recordings? So if we were to, let's say, if we were to grab a data of all the sound collections that we have, and in this nice tapestry of sounds that we have collected, more than 40% of them are just the recordings of buses. What kind of picture does that paint for Singapore? Does that mean that Singapore is full of buses? We make buses? Or are Singaporeans abnormally or unusually passionate about buses? So what does this paint if the ratio of the sound recordings we have are quick like that? And what does success look like for the website? Okay, so last slide. This is the team, Sasha, Jamie, and I, and this is the rolling stock, the train depot. I don't know whether this picture should be put up, whether we have the permission. It is an area that most people don't have access to. Yeah, so this is a team. Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray, for the very interesting presentation on painting with sound, the oral tapestry of a city-state. I'm sure we all have a lot of questions for you, but we're also running a bit late. Let's see how we go, and maybe some of us might stay on after the last video and Q&A. Yeah. So the next presentation is by Christian Lemuel MAGALING, or Lem, and he's presenting on repatriating Filipino workers' voices in labor captivity from its selected European media. So Lem is from the Philippines and is currently living in Germany. He is at the University of Bonn in Germany as a PhD student in the International Graduate School for Oriental and Asian Studies. Lem is dealing with materials from the former German colonial office. And here is our report.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am happy to be here and to take part in this conference. I am Lemuel, and the title of my presentation is Repatriating Filipino Workers' Voices in Labor Captivity from Selected European Media. This presentation aims to discuss the preliminary collection, curation, and repatriation of Filipino migrant workers' interviews from selected European media. In curating these materials that were not previously shown to audiences in Southeast Asia, this study reflects on a stream of labor migration history by providing sight and sound as dimensions of studying affective experiences and memories of mobility and displacement. This contributes to alternative methodologies on labor studies in the Philippines through expanding voice aspects in sonic history by recollecting the accents of migrant workers and reframing historical facial expressions. The Philippines sends thousands of overseas workers every day to an estimated 1.77 million between April to September 2020 alone. Despite this fact, the conditions of Filipino migrant workers are a hidden sight in Philippine social reality. Labor force is the major export of the Philippines in the 21st century, so much so that the government has converted its own education policy to be geared toward export-oriented services. Aside from this, migration has been a historical characteristic of Filipinos ever since the pre-colonial period. European archives for sight and sound have untapped potential to document the audiovisual history of Philippine migrant labor abroad. While historical events usually find their way in European media about the Philippines, narratives of Filipino workers in moments in the past had their limelight in European media. This encounter could provide a potential source of texts from serialized narratives to sequence frames of movements, facial as well as tonal expressions. Conceptual shifts also occurred in the concepts being used to refer to migrant labor. An example could be the reassignment from overseas contract workers to overseas Filipino workers. Just a quick Google Ngram search of the English language literature, which used overseas contract workers to overseas Filipino workers, will show that the OCW concept has its peak in 1997 during the Asian financial crisis, while OFW during 2003 to 2004. The change, however, had an added consequence, that is, the installment of the national character in the outflow of workers as Filipinos rather than as individuals hired for a certain scale in the supply chain of the international labor market. A recent Filipina actress who won multiple international awards depicted a character of a maid, Abigail, or real-life Dolly Earnshaw de Leon, for the movie Triangle of Sadness by the Swedish director Ruden Uslund. But long before the character of Abigail, Filipino maids abroad have already been framed behind the lens. From their labor captivity, these maids were not from a fictional narrative, but from a real-life nursing home in the Netherlands in the 70s. The clip was broadcasted by NCRV, or the Dutch Christian Radio Association, on the 9th of January 1973, from a Christmas celebration in a retirement home in Bussum, Netherlands, made available by the Netherlands Institute for Sight and Sound. The 24-minute and 15-second program opens with a 5-minute and 23 seconds of Filipina dancing traditional dance cariñosa, truncated by an interview about their work and integration in the Netherlands. In the clip, Dutch retirees wore formal dresses while seated uniformly. As the curtains parted, a nipa hut stood on the background as 8 Filipinas on stage wearing Filipiniana attire, synchronized in pairs with the blasting pre-recorded rondalla sound. Wearing bright smiles, these weren't professional dancers who crossed seas to perform in front of a live audience, but Filipino nurses working at a retirement home in the Netherlands. The audience, with a mild exposure in between frames, were sequenced to remind the viewer that this was a live performance. Despite the black and white quality of the recording, the camera managed to capture all the bright smiles of Filipinas who seemed content about their jobs, explaining that they were doing the dance out of pleasure. Although the answer emanated from the reporter's question, it was expounded by the unnamed Filipina. They were actively representing their country like cultural ambassadors, not just through their caregiving services, but through learned choreographs of folk dances. While speaking, the reporter could not help but notice the confident Dutch of the Filipina leading the group. The flattered Filipina returned the compliment by showing an awkward facial expression. At timestamp 1 minute 15 seconds, the Filipina stood before an interviewer represented by one of them, answering back in confident Dutch, complete with hand gestures that were not missed by the camera. Expounding about their integration in the country as gastarbeides, or foreign employees, the title of the program, Beter Samen, or Better Together, which also includes other nationalities such as Turkish and Italian workers in different industries. The message of the program was clear: integration and the positive interaction between peoples of different backgrounds. Of the materials from ethnographic notes, letters, diaries, and literature, video interviews in European media remain to be an untapped source in labor migration studies. This documentation could open a repository of tones and facial expressions that were captured using this medium. It could also expose cultural encounters, since the construction of images and sounds mediated nations that were captured by the recordings. The case of budget maids in Singapore casts a different light on the situation of overseas Filipino workers and should be a reminder of the harsh realities that Filipino workers faced abroad. A short expose of 7 minutes and 55 seconds could just be a peek at the conditions of OFWs at the hands of unchecked, ill-regulated employers left to their whims and wishes. The report was provided by Deutsche Welle Spanish in 2013, which follows the story of Filipina and Indonesian domestic helpers in Singapore, labeled as budget maids. The report enumerates the harassment and abuse that Annalyn Renonos went through while in the hands of her former employer, that was never named nor interviewed by the news channel. In the program Skibenes Slaver, or Ship Slaves, by the TV Aktuelt, Danish news channel, the Philippines were also featured as one of the main exporter of seafarers in the world. While the Dutch news channel NCRV only provided a portion of the airtime to Filipino nurses, TV Aktuelt has given a full 21 minutes and 22 seconds to delve deeper into the issues of Filipino seafarers. This has provided enough exposure for a comprehensive detail in reporting about the problems of Filipino workers. The story begins by exposing the treatment of job applicants inside the recruitment center where Filipinos lined up, while a Danish reporter explains the economic impacts of exporting seafarers to foreign companies. The bank executives explaining the need of the economy to earn US dollars as to have foreign currency reserves. 3 seafarers and a mother were interviewed alongside a service agency worker, a banker, and a government executive. What is striking in these interviews were the smiles of the interviewee alongside the political nature of the discussion. They were all smiling, obviously. Facial expressions are often appreciated as an efficient form of nonverbal communication, thus complementing what is being spoken in the context of audiovisual materials. Scientific literature on the subject of facial expressions range from neurobiology, behavioral sciences, to facial expressions as a form of literature. In studying the universality of facial expressions, happiness has the highest predictability rate, according to some studies. Although a preliminary analysis of the facial expression with the verbal expression of these interviews show that the smiles that these persons evoke were not out of happiness or positive emotions. These captured smiles were expressed when delivering negative conditions. So, for example, the guy wearing green, his name is Alfredo, and he's one of the Filipino seafarers who protested the bad labor the labor conditions that they experience with under the company of Fred Olsen Lines. So he smiled during the interview, but while smiling, his smile were followed by the following words. Number 1, treated like slaves. Number 2, one washing machine during winter season. Number 3, I don't know. And lastly, in my belief, there is no glory without sacrifice, isn't it? So this provides a contradiction between the facial expression and the verbal expression as reflected in these interviews. Finally, the visibility of the foreign workers is interpreted in a different way. When they have to be visible, it is at the expense of their privacy. Take, for example, the employer in Singapore who let her employee live in a small corner space in her living room. When asked why she let this kind of setup happen, she simply answered that it is in order for her to keep an eye on her, whatever that means. In terms of media aesthetics, the foreign worker is not the only one overexposed in her personal space, while the small rooms of the Indonesians were captured. The European media invading her personal life from the little property that she has was followed and traced by the camera. Although personal space is also already the working space, There is no difference in the entirety of the household where every inch is part of housework for the domesticated foreign worker. The invasion to create a spectacle does not stop with the foreign worker. European media aesthetics seem to be compelled to also include the conditions of the worker's household, her family, and the negative environment back home. From exposing hanged underwear, naked babies, kitchens, and toilets, to curating the poorest area of the slums in Jakarta and Manila. While it could be that the reports were trying to garner some appeal or sympathy, it is likely that this would only desensitize the viewers from the sheer shock value instead of arousing them to call out the exploitation. It could do better justice if the lavish lifestyle of people who benefit from this kind of trade could be given attention by the investigative media instead. The folkloric characterization of the Filipino, which provides advantages as a more marketable labor source, reify exotic qualities derived from the writings of Spanish priests. The bareness of work should promise something more. Thus, symbolisms of folkloric personality were assumed and expected of her. Performing as an exotic native provides an added layer of exploitation since this is beyond her supposed work deliverables. These folk dances embody texts that feature colonial imagery projected onto the contemporary Filipina. What remained of her was replicated and converted back in a seemingly innocent manner. Even the religious songs that sing of universal understanding when Annalyn sang together with other Filipino domestic workers is more of a strategy to deflect the experience of defeat and harassment in rebuilding self-esteem than a kind of celebration of life. The accepted folkloric representation is still intervened by colonial reasons. Could it be that the problem of shame and separateness stem from the fact that the gaze with which to study and look at the situation of Filipino domestic workers and the media depiction still mirrors a position that takes up the colonial gaze? Layers of sound, accents, tonal, and facial expressions that were captured by these audiovisual recordings could help revisit a historical depiction of the Filipino worker abroad as they traverse different social issues while forming their own narratives as documented in selected European media. It is one way to see the world through the migrant workers' perspective, and another to see them and to hear them speak, in a way making them visible again. To hear the Filipino workers speak not only of languages familiar to Filipinos like English and Tagalog. This research by collecting the images and sounds of Filipino migrant worker interviews as depicted in European media is also a way to interrogate labor discourses of early 20th century. These interviews and depictions were not shown in Southeast Asia since the intended audience for this media were the Europeans themselves. Curating these reports of seemingly fragments of history of Southeast Asian labor migration through sight and sound is a form of repatriating these narratives from dancing Filipino nurses in Dutch retirement homes, Filipino sailors in ship slaves by Danish media, and budget maids in Singapore by German media that were celebrated but remain hidden in the shadows of social archives. That's the end of my presentation, and thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amna, and I'm delighted to be here as a presenter at this conference. I'm graduate research assistant at the project of InterPARES Trust AI and a master candidate at Sorbonne University in the fields of records management and archival studies. Today I'll be sharing with you a photo album in a suitcase tracing collective memory through Emirati family archives, and I hope you can engage with my presentation and inspire some interesting discussions on this topic. Thank you for the opportunity for me being here today. However, the conference theme Sustainable Audiovisual Archives for the Community is a closely linked theme to my research about family archives and personal albums. The theme of the conference emphasizes the importance of preserving audiovisual materials in a sustainable way to ensure that they can be accessed and used by the community from years to come. My research about family archives and personal albums also emphasizes the importance of preserving these materials as mean of exploring the cultural identity and family narratives, and it also contributes to the conference theme by highlighting the importance of preserving and curating family photographs and personal albums as a mean of documenting and exploring cultural identity. It also emphasizes the need of sustainable practices in preserving these materials so that they can be accessed and used by future generations. And my presentation will also shed light on the different ways in which families used to interact and communicate with each other and how these practices are reflected in their photographic albums. This presentation will look at my family archives and photo albums from the 1960s to the 2000 in the UAE, specifically in the Emirate of Sharjah. And we will also explore how these photos were displayed and presented in order to present a significance of photography of the cultural identity. This photo album will tell us more about how memories were created through photographs, giving us a look about how the daily life, the socioeconomic conditions at that time, and how family used to interact with each other at that time. Through the family album, we will offer a look to explore the different way of photographic practices, including the curation of photographic albums, and we can see that different categories emerged at that time, from cutting edges, posing in front of a car, leaning backs, and more, to create a family narratives. And to be more specific, I will study the photographs of my family. The album and images, which are based on a large photographic archive, demonstrated how people actively replicated, circulated, and negotiated into the ideal Emirati identity, reflecting their class aspirations, a more social and cultural developments at that time, such as the Western fashion trends, movies, car poses, etc. And the personal archives involves more than just effective information retrieval and storage. We will give two sets of findings in this paper. Firstly, we will analyze the justifications of photographs and personal albums archiving, which goes beyond information retrieval and also involve leaving a legacy, sharing resources, facing fears and anxieties, and finally the identity creation, which is the most important point. And we will next demonstrate how these justifications were translated into the physical, social, and cultural settings. Photography has been used as a powerful tool to capture and preserve cultural identity for decades, whether it's capturing traditional clothing, art, or cultural practices. Photographs have the ability to tell stories to go beyond words. However, the significance of photography in representing the cultural identity goes beyond just capturing images. It's about how these images were displayed and presented, the way photos are showcased can affect how they are interpreted into their cultural significance. And in this context, the display and presentation of photos can be just as important as the photos themselves in exploring the significance of photography in representing cultural identity. Photographs have played a crucial role in shaping our cultural identity and recording our history. During the 1970s, photography became more accessible to the general public, to the widespread of the affordable use of cameras and the rise of photographic art. One way which photographs have shaped our cultural identity is by documenting significant events at that time. Photographs have also helped to shape our cultural identity by capturing the fashion, music, and the art of the 1970s. And photographs have played a crucial role in recording the history by documenting and capturing the significant events and movements that have influenced the society back then. This photo album is a prime example of how photos can be used to explore the significance of photography in representing the cultural identity. The album captures the daily life and provides a window to the socio-economic conditions of that time and place. And the album showcases not only individual photographs but also how they are presented and arranged, which can reveal a lot about families and communities, how they used photography to create and preserve their memories. The presentation of the photos in the album is significant as it reveals the value and meaning attached to certain events, people, moments that were captured in these photographs. For example, some certain photographs are permanently displayed while others are tucked away in the corners of the albums, indicating which moments were deemed more important and memorable to the person. Moreover, the album provides an insight about how families and communities used photographs to communicate and interact with each other, and the photographs often depict social gatherings, family reunions, celebrations, and highlighting the most important of social relationships and community in the cultural identity in the UAE. However, photography underwent significant changes with the emergence of different categories and styles that reflected the cultural identity of that time. And one of the most notable changes was the emergence of new poses and techniques which helped to create family narratives and capture memories in unique ways. One category that emerged during the 1970s to the 80s was the use of cutting edge techniques that we mentioned and to create fantastical images. This included techniques such as the double exposures, photo manipulation, and creative lighting, which allowed photographers to capture imaginative and surreal images that reflected the cultural identity of that time. Another category that emerged during this time was posing in front of cars, which became a more popular way to showcase the status at that time and the identity. And photographs of people posing in front of cars were often used into highlighting the wealth, success, and style, and were a popular way to capture memories of special events and occasions. Finally, leaning backs was another pose that emerged during that period and which was often used to convey a sense of confidence and coolness. And this pose was popular among teenagers and young adults who used it to showcase their individuality and cultural identity. Moreover, the emergence of new categories and styles has also helped to create family narratives with photographs capturing different members of the families into different poses and settings. The photographs helped us to tell the story of the family and capture the most important memories, such as graduations, marriage, and family reunions. And in summary, the different categories and styles have reflected the cultural identity of that time and helped to create family narratives through innovative poses and techniques. And these photographs captured important memories and helped to tell the memories of families, communities, and the broader cultural identity of that period. Let's discuss and analyze. At the first, photographs and personal albums archiving are more than just effective information retrieval and storage tools. They also serve as variety of justifications such as leaving a legacy, sharing resources, facing fear and anxieties, and identity creation. One of the most significant justifications for personal album archiving is leaving a legacy. Personal albums capture important memories, events, and people in a person's life and serve as a record of their personal history. By creating an album, individuals can preserve these memories for future generations, leaving a legacy that tells the story behind their life. Another justification was the sharing resources. Personal albums can be used to share memories and experiences with others, creating a sense of connection and community. By sharing their personal albums, individuals can contribute to a collective memory and help to preserve the cultural identity of a community. Personal album can also serve as a way of facing fears and anxieties by capturing and preserving memories. Individuals can confront difficult experiences such as loss or trauma and work through their emotions. This process can be a source of healing to individuals, allowing them to find the meaning and purpose in their experiences. Lastly, personal album archiving can serve as a tool for identity creation. By curating and organizing photographs, individuals can create a narrative of their life that reflects their personal values, beliefs, and aspirations. This process of self reflection can help individuals to develop a sense of self and understand their place in the world. In conclusion, personal album archiving serves as a variety of justifications beyond information retrieval, including leaving a legacy, sharing resources, facing fears and anxieties, and finally, identity creation. One example of this negotiation of identity is the incorporation of Western fashion trends and movies into the Emirati culture, which is evident in the clothing, hairstyles, poses of individuals in the photographs, and the personal archive involved in the creation of this album is more than just an effective information of retrieval and storage tool. It is the reflection of the cultural identity and of Emirati society and the ways in which individuals negotiated their identity in response to changing social and cultural developments. The Emirati photo album is based on a large photographic archive that does not only captures individuals' memories but also reflect the broader cultural identity at that time. The photographs demonstrated how people actively replicated, circulated, and negotiated into the ideal Emirati identity, reflecting their class aspirations, as we mentioned. In the faded photograph from the family archives, a sleek and shiny car stands in proud of time revenges. It's a vision of a classic Mercedes, the kind of car that will turn heads and draw admiring glances as it cruised down the street. It is a moment of frozen time, a memory captured forever in the treasured photograph, and a celebration of the joy and freedom that only this can bring. In conclusion, the Emirati photo album is a valuable record for the cultural identity of Emirati society during that time, and it was created and reflected the negotiation of the identity in response to the Western influence, changing consumer culture, and social aspirations as well. The personal archives involved in the creation of the album is a valuable record of the broader social and cultural development of that time and reflecting the significance photography in capturing and negotiating the cultural identity. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll be taking questions after this video recording.
Does anyone have a question for Amna or Lem? No?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm here.
Uh-huh. Go ahead, Lem.
Uh, come again? Okay.
Oh, you weren't asking a question. Sorry.
No, no, no. I don't.
I actually have a question for Amna. Do you want to unmute your mic?
Yes, hi.
Hi,
Afternoon.
Amna. This is Sri, and I'm with the SEAPAVAA. We're all in session 2B together. And I just wanted to know, is this actually this Emirati album? Is it a software that people could come and use and select different photos, and how would they go about doing it?
No, these are personal family archives that I have done my studies in.
So it's your own physical photo album that you are doing your studies
Yes,
on.
yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Amna or Len?
Hi, Amna. I have a question for you.
Yes, hi.
Hi, what is the size of the collection that you have? How many pictures, photographs do you have in that family album?
Actually, it was too hard to classify them and choose between them because I'm having more than like 15 albums, and in each one there's more than 50 photographs. So it was kind of difficult to choose between the photos and which one to present according to my research, but I have done my best and I hope you really enjoyed it.
Are you going to digitize all of them?
Yes, and I'm doing so with the help of New York University in Abu Dhabi. There's a project called Akasa, which means a camera but in a local Arabic context. And they help people to digitize their photos and also publish them in their website. I can write the website name in the chat and you can view it. There's a lot of collections in this website by New York University.
I see.
Amna, are you providing access to everyone for your own family collections?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
After digitization, would you provide access to other people
Yes,
for your family collections, and how does your family feel about it?
yes, they're okay. They're open to the idea of this. And I'm doing so with the project I told you about in New York University, Akasa.
Yes, we see that link. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Len,
Hi.
hi. I wanted to know your sources of the European media that you went through to do this study.
Yes. So most of the okay, it's echoing. Yeah, so most of the collections are coming from the Europeana collection, which is like it's connected with several different video archives. So actually, this papers I'm publishing it with the as a collection of visual research in the Philippines. So the research was actually like a preliminary of what is available at least online. So I've consulted the Netherlands Institute for Sight and Sound, which has been very helpful with providing the video interviews from the 70s for the Filipino guest workers that traveled to the Netherlands. So that's one, but most of them are available in the Europeana collection, and it's a like a website which connects different European video collections here in Europe. So yes, so that's a good start. But I think the challenge lies um, in actually working with other possible resources, because for this research I just focused on using materials that are linked to the Philippines and has like a visual sources such as this one with videos. Yes.
Thank you, Len. Questions from the floor.
I have a question for the next aspect. I know the incentive is very creative, but I wonder like how the policy or activity or criteria of what some will like.
Yes, ideally we should have a collection policy, but because this is crowdsourcing website platform, the only thing we can do is to put up prompts for people to put in more thought into what sounds they find meaning in uploading. So it's something that we are grappling with as well, like how much control do we want to have in the crafting out of the collection? Are we going to come up and say, no, from these 2 months, we are only going to ask people to upload sounds of maybe birds in Singapore. So that we want everyone to only upload these sounds to fill in certain collection gaps, or only upload sounds of recordings of dialects and accents, conversations in dialects. So do we want to go to this extent in crafting out the collection, or do we want to still let the collection grow as it is? Yeah, it's something we are still grappling with. So, but for our own archive collection, we do have collection policies, quite strict collection policies on what we accept. But for this SoundscapeSG, because it's more relaxed playground for our citizens to just play in and explore and see what sounds they want to upload.
Another question about your soundscape. So does it only exist on the website? Are you taking the content from the website and putting it somewhere else to be archived and secure?
Yes, from the sounds from Soundscape, we'll be picking up sounds. We have a selection criteria of sounds that we would download and archive in our own repositories, our own online servers, our own inventarization system. Yeah. So we would select from those. But there's another thing is that for most of the sounds that are recorded and uploaded onto the website, they are not in preservation quality. They are just uploaded and they're just recorded on the mobile devices. So the quality of the sound recordings, the files itself is one aspect that we have to take note of. So for the sounds that we collect in partnership with other groups, with let's say the Herpetological Society of Singapore, where they gave us the sounds of frogs, they also gave us a high quality wave sound files that these are the ones that we can archive. We'll archive those. But for those that are contributed by members of public, unfortunately, unless they are able to email us or send us the wave sound files, it is very difficult to get we can only upload and accession those that are already uploaded onto the website. Yeah. So it's like, how much more work do we want people to do to get their sounds archived? And is it worth their effort? Is it worth the effort? Would people be turned off if they say, please upload the MP3 onto the website and then send us the WAV on a separate channel? Is it going to turn people off from contributing? So that these are questions that we are also asking ourselves.
Ray, do you have people coming back to the same location and trying to replicate that scenario and uploading an updated sound?
Yes, this is a good question also. At the moment, we don't have such an arrangement, but we would like to do so because it has got research value. So what you're saying is that for us to record, let's say, Clarke Quay, a certain spot, the sound of Clarke Quay by the Singapore River, maybe you would record at this particular time of the month, every single month for 1 year. So we can chart the differences in sound throughout time. So this is something that we are looking at as well. So for us to engage in this, we would have to see, are there any groups that we want to work with, or do we want to do it ourselves? And how do we choose the spots? What's the significance of the spot that we are trying to monitor the changes in the sound over time? Yes.
Maybe it's the case of encouraging the person who uploaded the sound to go back in a year and update the same sound. Otherwise, it's hard to replicate it. So I'm assuming that you don't clean up any sound at all, right?
This is also one of the questions that we are asking. How interventionist do we want to be in editing the recordings that have already been uploaded? So is it right for some of the questions that we think is that if someone uploaded just the sound of the bus, is it right for us to go in and add into the metadata on our end? Is it something that we should be doing, or should we just leave it as it is? Yeah, so these are things that we are still thinking about as well.
Thank you. Any more questions for our three speakers this afternoon?
I was just curious to know what sort of engagement you had from people, the public, and sort of going into the website, not uploading, just listening down. And have you ever had to censor any of the sound, like posted swear word?
Yes, this is very important. When for every upload, we would have to listen to the recording before we approve for it to appear on the website. So if there's any swear words, it would be flagged out, and we would just remove, we just take it down. And so far, it's been good. It's been good. The only issues that we have come across in uploads that we have to take down are those with copyright recording sounds that are recorded along with the recording. So let's say a person who happens to be recording in a shopping mall and there's copyrighted music playing in the background. Well, we have to take that down because it is the we can still hear the music playing very clearly. Yeah. So for these instances. We have got schools who are interested. They enjoy listening to the recordings, so they ask their students to take part in it as well.
It's coffee time. Thank you so much, Ray, Amna, and Lem for joining us today. Thank you, everyone.